Llancarvan, one of the lovely necklace of villages in the Vale of Glamorgan. Llantrisant, Llanbytheri, Llanblethian, where the pulse of life is still tranquil and steady. This whole area, centuries ago, was a great centre for monasteries and colleges. Not long ago, the remains of a monk standing upright was found walled up, possibly in punishment for some offence. He was facing the door of the local pub. Waiting? The monks are gone. But it is still a place to savour life, to enjoy the simple sight and impact of sky, wind, water and grass. Standing at the head of this valley, it is always with the feeling that this is a place towards which one has always been making one's way. The Vale is full of taverns, and through the summer evenings, long convoys of cars and coaches bring the people of Cardiff, Pontypridd and the Rhondda seeking the restorative charm of quietness and malt. The cramped and dingy beer houses of yesterday are glistening roadhouses now. Even the thatch is permanently waved. Eternity and Wagon Trail stand serenely cheek by jowl. Where the Celtic saints once laboured to make the face of savagery less wild, the Royal Air Force, at slightly more expense, sets its patterns of jet streams on the sky. Why does life persist in one place, one house, and why does it drain away from another? Why should these windows of Boverton Castle now look like lifeless eyes at the Vale it once dominated? For fanciers of pubs, Llantwit Major is the place. The Globe, the King's Head, the Cross Keys. And the square is a perfect oasis of hostelries. The Globe, the Swan, the White Hart, all fat with time and remembered nights of revelry and talk. The church and town of St. Illtyd, the great scholar, a man who devised a new and revolutionary type of plough. And he was probably a brewer as well on the side. The walls of the Swan are so thick, you wonder if it was to keep the customers in or the temperance workers out. From that little balcony of the Guildhall, town leaders proclaimed the approach of the Vikings rowing up the Channel, or the horned helmets of the Danes. Now there is nothing more alarming to announce than the crash helmets of motorcycle clubs, or inside the Guildhall the snapping fingers of Air Force boys as they come in for their Saturday night hop. What would St. Illtyd and the Vikings have made of this? Joined in, probably, and found themselves developing more crooked ways of ploughing and rowing. For whatever new noise or violence we invent, we shall always find some compensating calm and grace. This is the church of St. Illtyd, possibly the most solid link we still have with what legend tells us was a small university city, to which the princes of Europe came to sit at the feet of the Glamorgan wizards. Today there are fewer princes, and the Glamorgan wizards are a rugby team. In walking about the streets of this town, one has the feeling that a great tide of past time has receded, leaving little behind it save a few curious stains of significance. God save King James, 1604. The villagers whitewashed over that when Cromwell came along 40 years later. And the civilization to which these timeless Celtic crosses belonged probably wondered what all the fuss was about. These legs form part of a mural covered over by the whitewashing brigade who went into action at the approach of Cromwell to give the church and Llantwit a clean bill of theological health. The painting was restored to sight a few years ago, giving another dimension of precious life to this lovable place. In the churchyard are clusters of names that make up the deep, patient history of the Vale. And to give them shelter, trees of an un-Welsh kind brought from every corner of the earth. On this beach, countless waves of invaders have drawn up their boats and organized their own particular mystery tour of the Vale. The cows seem to have won. Once I had a camping holiday here. After 2 uneasy nights, we found it safer to put the cows under canvas and take a chance on the grass. There is something about a group of caravans that reminds me of a herd of cows. But cows move from place to place, giving milk and live less long. Have people longing for calm and beauty ever done so in ways that make the world less beautiful and calm? The charm of the westward wagon train was that usually in the morning it was gone. And along the coast are strung castles. Some are stricken, mouldering and silent. Some are empty, but still standing. And some are still standing and alive. This is one of them, St. Donat's. It was bought in the 1930s by William Randolph Hearst, the newspaper-owning American millionaire, who had many dollars and fewer scruples. He collected ancient castles and churches like some people collect beer mats and horse brass. And he had a bat to go with every belfry. He ran St. Donat's as a rigidly private domain. These are some of the natives sculpted at the time, expressing sympathy for Hearst as the American visitors lived it up. The pubs of Llantwit knew showers of heavy sugar they were not to know again until the beginning of the Second World War. Many famous guests walked through these paths and gardens. Clark Gable, Gary Cooper, Lloyd George, and the Aberavon Male Voice Party, among many others. More stars collected in one place than at any time since the first Druids went out of business. Many acquired villages around and about had their first glimpse of high society jinks. Now Hearst is gone. The castle is to become a school, one of the Atlantic colleges designed to create new personal and cultural ties between the boys of many nations. Southerndown and its beautiful cliff-top turf, enchanting cliffs, tempting cliffs. Seabirds nest here, and for as long as we fail to persuade seabirds to leave their eggs inland out of harm's way, boys will continue to loot their craggy nests and come to grief. There has been a fair amount of grief along this shore. You've heard of the wreckers of Dunraven. They waved their lanterns on the headland to lure storm-bound ships to their doom. There were so many people patrolling the cliff top with lights so regularly, the ships came to rely upon them, and this took the fun out of wrecking. Now the castle is empty, the headland quite dark. Treco Bay, one of the great escape valves of Glamorgan. Across these dunes is spread one of our largest caravan cities. Seen from the other side of the bay, it has the appearance of a North African town, Morocco with a mosque off. After a holiday month in one of these, you can go back to a tiny house in one of the mining valleys and go mad with a sense of space. The one time I tried my hand at living in one of these caravans, it was a real junior mouse model. I got into such a knot somewhere between the bunk and the stove, I wound up half asleep, making my last meal on a plateful of elbow and chips. In the night, they can have the ambiguity of the dunes on which they were built. There is the story of the miner returning from a jovial evening in Porthcawl. He had forgotten the exact site of his caravan and was not sufficiently in touch with the gypsies to make a good guess. He wandered up and down the endless avenues of caravans, tapping on windows and doors, calling out the name of his wife. Megan, Megan. He didn't find his wife, but he found 5 women called Megan and got a week's jail for hindering sleep and undermining confidence. A vigorous and joyful place, Treco Bay, an arm that has grown out of the new world of plenty and leisure. We shall learn a gayer, freer view of life from such settlements. They are an essential part of Wales. A flight into the light. The flight will be even better when we get firmer and smoother roads.